So well, appreciate it. This so much to follow on, right? So
That took a long time to create, Zach.
well,
That's an amazing schematic.
there's there's power in simplicity. So that's what we're gonna go with. I posted my video in the WhatsApp group, and I you could say it's all language and stuff like that, which is true, but I am not. Yes, that's a story. I have a hard time taking what's in my head and putting it out on the papers. So I decided to just, what Kern said. You go onto Google, you find some images, and just kind of go with that. So I'm going to string together a few different, images, and one of them is going to be Kern's. So thanks for that, Kern. Poached one of your images. So I'm going to tie together some of my, like, what do I want to say? I've been into astrology since I was a kid. And studied it in earnest since 2003. So archetypal type of references, imagery. I'm going to tie in some quantum physics and consciousness, our beliefs, our relationship to those beliefs, and how our relationship to the beliefs create our reality, which is a lot of pretty much what we've been talking about, right? A lot of what everybody's putting their own schematics in their own way. So here's my spin on it. So the first image that we're seeing right now is what would be called like the monad. It's a dot, it's a point. In astrology, it represents the sun, it's life. I would like to say that it's us, it's our sovereign individuality. It represents our unfettered, unactualized potential. So 100% possible 100% of the time is what some people would say. So this is true, like all potential in one point. So then the next image, I'll blow this up, is where we have a monad. So take that top one there, right? That's you, or it's me, it's an individual. And then you have two, right? You have two monads, which are going to be, you and the other. It's like me and me talking to you, or you talking to somebody else. It's the relationship between those two sovereign individuals. And in between there, that intersection between those two circles with the line in between, that represents the co-creation point. That's where things can start to manifest. And it's I have a hard time pronouncing this, but I believe I think it's called the what is it, the Piscis, I believe. And then the relationship between these 2 points creates the triad. You can't really have two interacting monads without the third point, the triangle, which represents the relationship between those two sovereign individuals. So then this is Kern's image, right? So what I wanted to do is say that the worldview down in the lower left corner is going to be one monad. It's going to be one person's view. And you can see that projection of the world and their perception of the world in the upper right-hand corner, right? That's their version of the world. And then in the lower right-hand corner, we've got the worldview too. That's going to be another monad. And then in the upper left-hand corner, that's going to be their version or vision of the world. And in between, you can still see the intersection between those two circles where the Piscis is. And that's where the co-creation, that's where the synthesis between those two realities actually exists. That's kind of where our real world starts to manifest. And I want to just draw our attention to the behavioral filter in the center, because the next part I'm going to talk about is like an experiment in quantum physics. And I'll just kind of explain that before we get to it. But there's an experiment in quantum physics called the double slit experiment. And what the physicists did is they would take a wave pattern and shoot it through a plate that had a single slit, and they would see what pattern got created on a back plate. And then, with one slit in it, it created a single line. And then with two slits, it would create this interference pattern that had multiple single lines on the back plate. And they're like, okay, well, that's wave patterns. So what do we do if we take like electrons, like matter? Like what happens when we do that? So again, you have a single slit, creates a single line on the back plate. And then they theorized that when they shot an electron, or electrons, I should say, through two slits, that they would get two slits, two single line patterns. And then they decided they would shoot just single electrons at a time with time in between them. So like, shoot one electron, then another electron, and another one. They figured they'd get the two lines again, but that's not what happened. They got the interference pattern of basically multiple patterns on the back. And that baffled them. They didn't understand why that happened. So I'll just kind of start off showing it. This is there, and I'll post the YouTube video of this experiment, how it's explained in the WhatsApp group. But in this slide, I'd like to draw our attention to the bottom wave, the wave at the bottom. And that is like our internal frequency. That's what we're putting out into the world. That is where we are, right now, or where we are at that point in time in our life. That's what our vibration is. And if it's going through a single slit, I liken that to like our relationship to ourself. So we're putting out a vibration, we're relating to ourself, and that same vibration resonates out, propagates out, and hits the back plate, creating that single reality. That's our relationship to ourself. And then in the double slit, where, again, in the lower left corner, that's our frequency, that's our vibration, and it propagates out to two slits. But in this one, I would like to liken the two slits as the relationship to ourself, but then to the other as well. So somebody else has their vibration, and on the back side of that plate, you can see where there's multiple waveforms now, and it creates these intersections and these this other pattern. And then on the back plate, you could see all of these different interference patterns, and that is the potential. Like what can we create or co-create with other peoples? And those different patterns on the back plate represent those rather infinite type of outcomes, depending on how we choose to vibrate or resonate with others. So this slide basically represents the part of the experiment where the physicists were just kind of baffled that when they shot electrons through, that it got multiple interference patterns, because they thought it should just create two lines on the back plate. So they put a measuring device right by the double slit in the wall. And I liken this measuring device, this camera or whatever tool they use, as our belief systems. These are our perceptions. These are the things that we pick up from our family, our subconscious programming, the nationalism that we have, the religion that we have, and all of these things that create our filters, our behavioral pattern that we view the world through. And so when as soon as they started to observe the phenomenon, the electrons quit creating the multiple interference patterns and created the dual interference patterns, which in my mind is the whole like us versus them, or you versus me kind of mentality. This type of reality where it's no longer like this infinite potential because of our beliefs that we have now indoctrinated ourselves with or been indoctrinated with. So you take anything like nationalism or religion or anything else, or any type of wedge topic, and you take the death penalty, gun control, abortion, whatever it is, and you take these emotionally charged type of topics and you create these wedge topics, and they collapse all other potentials that could possibly be and create this binary us versus them type of mentality. And to get into universal dynamics, it's my belief that that's why fear is a huge tool that's used by the people that are in power to collapse those potentials, because it shoves our decision-making process into the stem of our brain, and that keeps us from being attached or reconnected to our higher self. And it allows them to be in control of what potentials we are creating and what we're seeing and what we're believing. And then I just go back to, this slide here to kind of represent that. So you've got this binary, you've got the us versus them mentality, and that's my view of the world, and that's their view of the world. And so we just have this dichotomy where we kind of forget, if we were to open ourselves up and have a larger view and a more accepting kind of a view, then where we intersect in our relationships, that the Psyche Pisces could be really large. We can start to create more potentials or different potentials than what we're currently creating. So I just come back here to the relationship that we have. We're all sovereign individuals. We all have that infinite potential. And I just want to bring this slide back up to just remind us of the relationship that we have to each other, with our infinite potential to each other and our relationship to that. And then I ended on, that's the point, right? That is the whole point. So that's what I got.